Well, folks, we are here in episode 180 a couple. What are we doing? 185.
85.
It's pretty exciting. This is the High Tech Podcast. One of your hosts, William Millingworth, joined by Joshua Swartz. We're doing the thing. We are just doing everything different this week. I got sick, so we're not recording our usual day.
Will basically wasn't alive. It was the whole thing.
It was rough.
It was crazy. Yeah. There were so many people sick this week. I don't know those listening, but it was like, I felt like everybody in my life was sick, you know? So all of you should talk to each other less and not spread it to each other. That's my new vibe. I felt surrounded.
It was like the last, the apocalypse of healthy people. You're just kind of looking at the few people who are healthy, like, stay away from me, A, and B, how are you healthy? Dang it. Jealous.
Yeah, I was surrounded for a second. I felt between work, family, friends, like everybody was like, was dropping, you know?
Now, I might have to admit, I went to the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl win parade.
You walked into disease.
We were
Central, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
We were with 500,000 or a million other people just celebrating, hooping and hollering.
They won something, right?
Yes, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. That night, I was like pretty tired. Some friends wanted to still go out, and I was like, no, I can't go out. I'm tired. I just need to get home and sleep. I went home, I slept, and I woke up Saturday. I was like, no, you know what? I'm great. That was enough. I just need to sleep. I'm fine. By like midnight Saturday, I was starting to feel feverish and whatever. And I woke up Sunday morning and was just full on, just gross, like just disgustingly sick for 6 days. It was great. It was so much fun. But that's different this week. We're not recording our usual day. We're not in StreamYard anymore. We'll go into that rant, I think, at some point.
Maybe a different, but you just said it, so I feel like maybe I need to.
Well, I'm pretty sure. So we're using a new platform, Squadcast, and we're using their free version, which means there's going to be a watermark on this episode. I don't think I can get rid of the watermark.
Oh, that's right.
People are going to see today's episode.
We're testing software, folks. This is breaking the fourth wall of the High Tech Podcast.
That's what we do.
StreamYard, which we've been using for over a year now at this point, right?
Yeah,
so we've been using them for a while.
Just a year.
Just about a year. They raised their prices by 240%.
Yep.
So
not just like my eggs downtown. My eggs are now $1 more expensive if you can find them. No, it's like 240%, folks. It's not like $5 a year or a month or whatever. No, it was like 180 to 430. Pretty significant difference. So
with a month notice. So there will be a rant at a different time. This is not the episode for it right now because we got some stuff we want to do in this episode. But if StreamYard is listening, you're not my favorite right now.
And yes, I just gave the strawberries tongue out nana.
Solid work.
So
they deserve it.
They do deserve
these software companies randomly jacking prices up for no new features is my favorite. So thank you, everyone.
Anyways,
more positive things.
We'll see what kind of visuals are on the screen this week because it's going to be me editing in Camtasia again. Woohoo! But as usual, we will make sure that you know about all of our socials, all of our info. Make sure you go subscribe. We are at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod on Instagram, X, LinkedIn, Twitter, because to me they're separate things. YouTube.
LinkedIn and Twitter? You said
X and
sorry.
Twitter. I said X and Twitter.
You said X and Twitter. I heard LinkedIn and Twitter, and I was like, well, it's not just you. I don't know if you know this, but the whole world considers them separate platforms because they are.
We are on Twitter. No, I just said that. We are. Gosh, guys, I'm still.
We're on all the social media.
TikTok, Threads, all the stuff.
Yeah, find us all. Chris is back, by the way. There was a brief period where Chris was gone.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris, our social media manager, is back. So make sure to go check us out at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod on any of those socials that you can check us out. Back to Will to finish the intro.
If you want to be on the podcast, engage with us, tell us how crazy we are. We know. Inbox at hightechpod.us. Drop a line there. We'd love new guests, new friends. Love to have a challenge or a fun conversation about something we've done previously. Or do it on social, right? DM us, comment or something. So we just did
publicly call us out. No, I'm just joking. Don't do that.
If you go downtown to Lancaster Central Square Market, whatever thing place, get a box and a microphone and just be like, Josh and Will suck. You go ahead.
That would be.
But Inbox at High Tech Pod will get to us better.
Yeah, it would.
No, but so episode 184, Josh and I spent time using ChatGPT to try and build a game, and then good old friend of the podcast, thank you, Renee Dawson, commented on X and was like, hey, have you tried Rosebud to do the same thing? So then Josh and I are thinking about doing another follow-up episode using Rosebud to do the tank thing. Like that, it works. Reach out, get in contact with us. We'd love to
get in contact with us.
Develop the pod that way. And of course, all of our socials, all of our episodes, everything's always at hightechpod.us. So head over there to like, subscribe, share, follow, blah, 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 blah. All the fun things. Click the bell, ring the bell, hit the bell, kick
People
me
say
in the
ring
face.
the bell. I don't know. I just feel like this is like it's a thing.
Yeah.
Which like always reminds me of, have I ever told you the story? This is a total tangent, but I'm going to tell it for a second anyway, because we're the hosts. We can do whatever we want.
This is our podcast.
Did I ever tell you the story about that?
We just have 1 hour.
Arby's used to have a literal bell that you like hit. Do you remember? Were you with me?
No.
When that kid hit it so hard it fell off the wall? Was that you guys that we were with?
Wasn't me.
Okay. Somebody rang the. So I'm aging myself for a second. Arby's used to have a bell. I don't know if they still do. That you like rang in there. Like it was a literal ring the bell to let people know they did a great job. And some kid went to ring it, and the whole bell fell off the wall. Like
gold.
It was
gold.
It was amazing. So that just reminded me of that. So ring the bell on YouTube so hard that
the bell falls off the page.
The bell falls off the page. I don't know. That would be a fun animation, YouTube, if you're listening. That would be kind of entertaining.
I do love platforms like that sometimes like change their logo or make their logo interact with like holidays and stuff. Like you know, YouTube puts a little Santa hat on or something. Yeah, I love when websites do that. So
and
ring
they
the
do
bell
it,
and
but they're still free. Like you can still use them without like a 240% price increase. Sorry,
what a novelty!
Continue.
What is just getting in there, folks. We are excited. We've talked about this a little bit. Josh and I have been recording out of order, so this has been on our minds for months, literally.
Yeah. Well, speak for yourself. It was on my mind, and then we will like officially announce this on the podcast.
Are you ready? I wasn't gonna make you.
I haven't really I forget it now because it's just a part of our lives at this point. So for those who don't know, my wife and I were in the process of adopting, and that was successful. Woo! As of technically like over a month ago now. Yep. So we now have a son named Milo who will make an appearance in the series that we're starting. So this is probably why it's a good time to mention it, because he will appear
in the pie episode.
In the pie episode, the last episode of the series, Milo will appear, and he's actually smaller in that video than he is right now as I'm talking about this. That's why we did it. So anyway, yes, it's very exciting. But to that comment to Will, I have not been thinking about this for months. We were thinking about it for months until that happened. And,
and then Josh's life turned upside down in the best way.
So things have been different. It's been awesome. But speaking of that, a coworker, this is a fun side story, and then we'll jump into our series. Well, a coworker who you also know, Eric, just got Milo an outfit that said little project manager.
Yes.
So I think that's the coolest thing ever.
Perfect.
In case anybody is curious. There we go.
Well, if you want to send more baby merch for baby Milo and the Swartz family, inbox at hightechpod.us. You can send us whatever merch you want
we should come out with a High Tech Podcast onesie for babies. I think that's.
I wanted one.
Yeah, that's true. But like our new logo doesn't have our faces, so it wouldn't be quite as fun.
That's true.
It would just have our new cool logo on it, but we should make one where it's also the cartoon faces that we had in our old
logo. It looked like a Star Trek logo though, like the little H with the star. Like
kind of, yeah. I don't know. Pretty cool. Anyway, what are we starting this week, Will?
The learning question mark series.
Yeah, I think it's more supposed to be learning. Yeah. No, we went back and forth on the title of the series, whether or not it's learning question mark or learning. So you decide. I don't know for sure, but it's It's
this is kind of like the .us.us debacle.
Because that one was clear. There's a .us. It's not up for question.
Right?
It's not. This literally has a question mark in it. That's why this is up.
That's why I say question mark.
Yeah, we don't know. No, the learning series we're kicking off this week, right? Well, it's you want to explain to the listeners what the series is?
Yeah, we did a little bit of an intro at the end of last episode, but to give the full context for what the next 3 episodes are going to be, Josh and I took a trip last year to Mexico with a bunch of friends, and a conversation came up about, is higher education dead? And that actually became a whole episode of the podcast. Yeah. Go back and listen to Is Higher Education Dying? But the point of that was, we have YouTube, we have AI, what's that? And we can use these tools to learn just about anything. That's true. Well, when we kind of were wrestling with that conversation and dealing with this, it rose this, it created this podcast series. Can we learn anything using YouTube? The next 3 episodes, we're going to take time to learn 3 different things, Josh and I only using YouTube. So yes. The 1 asterisk on the 3rd episode about pie is we used the recipe that was on the YouTube channel, but YouTube was the resource. So for this episode and next episode, the only things we're going to use to learn what we're doing are YouTube. Today's episode is going to be the Elvish language from Lord of the Rings. That's the topic at hand. Yeah. We're going to try and speak some Elvish to one another. We're going to try and speak it well, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. We could have shot for the stars and said we'll have a full conversation in Elvish on the video.
No.
But we knew that was not going to happen, especially after everything that's happened over the last month. We knew there was no way that we were going to be doing that. So we were like, nah, let's maybe tweak this a little bit. So
simple.
We really just wanted to successfully say a phrase or two on the episode.
And hopefully have them sound good. Hopefully.
Yes, Will and I are busy people. We don't have time to scour the internet and learn for weeks and weeks on top of our regular jobs in life. So we kind of were we're just going to try to quickly learn some phrases. Now, before we jump into our phrases, because I know Will is significantly better prepared for this episode than I am. And we're not even going to have a conversation. It's literally just the same phrases.
And see if we can.
Yeah. How did so let's start from the beginning of the experience before we get to looking up phrases, right?
Yep.
So one of the premises, right, is you can learn anything off of YouTube. That's the big premise we're dealing with right now, which is basically, and this has been around for a little while since YouTube has become more and more popular, and we've had more and more learning content on YouTube. Our friend was not wrong. There is content on YouTube to learn from. But it's basically anybody can make a video on anything and teach you how to do something, and you can learn it off of YouTube. So one of the first things in that premise that we have to deal with is being able to find the content on YouTube, right? You need to be able to find what you're looking for, right? So the premise would be you want to learn something, you go search for that on YouTube or Google it or whatever, and you can find the content and get that content and then learn from it, right? So we're challenging all of these different premises. So Will, how for you did finding content go? I'm curious your thoughts on this, because I was kind of surprised on my end when we started looking for this, because we started looking for this a couple months ago because we were trying to prep for the series.
Yeah, this is actually a great place to start. Thank you, because it wasn't as easy, and it unfortunately, I guess in a good way, it starts to reveal what you're ignorant about, right? I went on YouTube and said, learn Elvish, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of responses, but did you know that there's more than one Elvish in Lord of the Rings?
No.
There's more than one language of Elvish. And then, of course, J.R.R. Tolkien is famous for having developed the full language and didn't just use some Latin phrases instead or something. But he's not the only Elvish out there. He's not the only person who's gone that far with his world building. So there's actually a lot of content to pick from, but what did I actually want? And I started reverse engineering, because I was thinking of, okay, I want to be able to say specific phrases from the movie. So that helped me dial it in a little bit.
You had a different goal than I did. Yeah.
I was like, oh, if I had to go find out, like, oh, when Aragorn's in this scene, what does he say? And then I found out it's Sindarin, Sindarin, which is that specific Elvish language. So then I was searching learn Sindarin, right? Like I used that specifically to get to the video I wanted. But it took it took a couple of cycles there to get around to something that was going to teach me what I wanted to learn.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I didn't know that there were two different versions of, even in his Elvish, that there were two different versions of Elvish. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Like, listen, I love Lord of the Rings, and I've watched and read the books. Well, I haven't watched the books. That would be dumb.
I watch the books every day. I just
movie.
watch them sit there in their full glory.
I just stare at them in their full glory. Yeah, no, I've watched the movies. I've read the books. And I probably knew that there, at some point, that there was two different versions of Elvish, but I didn't really think about that when we started to look at this. Right, so I had a similar thing as well. Like, I started to look, and I will acknowledge, it did, like you said, Will, reveal ignorance. So, like, as a regular course or learning experience would reveal ignorance to me, it revealed ignorance, but it revealed ignorance in the hard way, which is like, oh, now I've got to figure out how to find which Elvish I want to learn. I didn't know that was a thing that I had to worry about. Yeah, and I will say a caveat in the beginning here, right? And I'll show this later when we're, like, showing the videos that we picked. Because Will and I both picked different videos for this one. We've kind of taken different premises for each episode. So for this episode, we wanted to learn Elvish, but we weren't going to help each other. So we both just picked separate videos. We were going to come in and see how this went.
Yep.
Next week, we're installing a bidet because people use YouTube videos to learn how to do house tasks.
And
so
I'll
see how that goes.
I'll reveal a little bit of the curtain there. The bidet came from the idea that we were like, maybe we should build a fence, right? Like we kind of like
that is gonna come back if we do this series again. We were gonna build a fence, but then we realized in Pennsylvania right now it's freezing. Yeah. So like building a fence was a horrible idea. There was some talk about learning how to cut hair, and I would cut Will's hair, which he was fully game for.
I'm still right now. I need a haircut, so we should.
Yeah, we decided. I'm actually going to get a haircut today. Ironically, nice. But for V1 of the series, we were like, nah, that's probably not the best.
Let's make it easy.
The one we were most confident of that will be the end of this series is we were like, people use YouTube to learn how to like bake things, and we did want to but we wanted to beg the question: can you learn off of YouTube and do from an expert and do something at the level an expert could do? So Robin is making a guest appearance because many don't know this, but she is pretty much an expert baker from her past experiences. So she comes on and it'll be a fun episode where she actually competes with us to bake a pie.
There's no competition.
It's a whole thing. So anyway, so that was the first thing. I revealed my ignorance. And then the other issue, I'll talk about this in a second and I'll show when we look at the videos. We did pick a harder thing to learn. Like if we had picked Spanish, this would have been way less difficult probably to a certain extent. But like for specific, you can't just learn. I think for me, this highlighted one thing. It's not a guarantee that you can learn anything off of YouTube because people would have had to have put that on YouTube.
Right. Right.
And Elvish was hard to find. Like to actually find a video that taught you how to do Elvish, and we'll break down some of the learning experiences from the videos that Will and I looked at, but like it was I found it harder than I thought it was going to be to find the content. I have to be honest. And so there's also just so much on YouTube. Like YouTube has so much content now.
And to that point, like not all the videos, like even the series that I found, it's titled Learn to Speak Elvish. So he goes to very rudimentary things like pronunciation and stuff, but it's not like, here's some conversation things you can practice, right? Like that's a very common thing in like Spanish, in high school and stuff. Like, me llamo William, ¿cómo te llamas? Right? Like I call myself this. What do you call yourself? And like you go through a conversation, right? I didn't find that, right? Because Elvish is not typically a spoken language where it's conversational. But I did find out anecdotally, there is a Duolingo for Sindarin, so you can.
Oh, really?
You can. Use
we gotta try that out. Oh man!
And there's like a call on the one episode to like go contribute stuff to the Duolingo language there. So
lame. I should have found that.
Maybe that's what we do in the future is see what Duolingo.
Well, we could. That could be another series. So at some point in this episode, we are going to show the videos, and I think we're going to talk about the learning experience side of it as well. But before we do that, let's deal with the thing. Yep. Let's say our phrases, right? So,
Okay.
I think I'll.
Do you want to go first?
I think I will go first as I check my info.
As he reads his script over again and again.
The one phrase I learned, I don't know about you, Will, was said at the beginning of almost every video I found, which was Magavanen, I believe is how it's pronounced, or Magavanen, based on what I heard, which is supposed to mean well met.
Well met.
In Sindrin. So
yeah,
that's Magavanen, Will. I think we should start introing our episodes that way.
I have that in part of what I was gonna do, but now you're messing with my head and I can't hear it anymore. Yes, okay, good. Well met, my friend.
Yes.
The phrase that I wanted to pick up, I love in Lord of the Rings, the relationship Aragorn has with his horse Brago.
Yeah.
In the books,
Will's
there's
a sucker
actually
for this. Every time it shows up, it's like it's a thing for him.
It gets me. In the books, there's more information. Like Brago actually has there's a lineage, and he's a significant horse, and all this other stuff. But in the movies, a couple of times he calms Brago and he speaks to him. So this is what he says to Brago: "Me carnen Brago melonin," right? Well done, Brago, my friend. Yeah. And he pats him on the side. He's like calming the horse down. My carnen
that's in Two Towers, melonin. Right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is coming off of so that's a moment where he's riding him. It's coming off of another moment where he says, "Man la trasta, Brago, man kerich," and that's where he says, "What troubles you, Brago? What did you see?" And he's like, that's where the horse is upset in the stables, and he's trying to calm it down, and no one can calm it down. Okay. And so he's like speaking to it like, he's troubled. What did you see, Brago? Right. So those are my two bits, but
okay. Those were much longer phrases than I had.
Man la trasta, Brago, man kenich.
And what's funny is like these are going to be completely useless. These will never come in handy for us unless you're riding a horse that's named exactly the same after Aragorn.
I plan to have a horse in my life named Brago.
Okay. I guess I could say well met to people, but they just look at me like
Magavanen melanin.
Yeah, like what just happened? So interesting. My smaller phrase was a part of your bigger phrase.
Exactly.
We successfully said it. I will admit I had to listen to the beginning of the videos 4 or 5 times before we got onto here. And I wrote down for myself the pronunciation I heard.
Right.
And leaned into that. So now I will say a couple caveats. My weakness in this should not be entirely judged on the videos because I was not a good student and had other priorities than this at this exact moment. But Will, talk me through why you picked the videos you did. Maybe you can also share a screen, show us what video you picked. Yep. And then how you engaged with the video content probably would be good, because you definitely engaged with your stuff a bit more than me. So I have some thoughts on some of the experiences, but I'm curious.
Well, let's pop in, right? So got the screen share going. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Sweet.
I see Aragorn's beautiful face.
So beautiful. So this is elvish.org, fam, in case you wanted to know. And this is where it tells me this is Sindarin. So like I said, I knew I wanted it to be about that Brago stuff. So I went to this page and I searched Brago and I got these phrases. So I started here and I got to this information. And here, I'm a nerd, so I like that this breaks it down for me. Like, it doesn't break down everything exactly or like phrase by phrase, but it tells me man is what, le is a pronoun for you, trasta is troubles, blah, blah, blah. Cool. I'm interested because I'm geeky like that in the language stuff, but here it gave me man la trasta, and here it gave me my carnen. So that doesn't actually tell me anything. So if I just read that in English, it'd be man, li trasta, Brago, man, senich, right? That's what I would pronounce. But I knew that wasn't correct, and I had to go find something. And that's where I got to this guy, Andrew Eder. I'm going to mute him and let him play in the background a little bit. Magavanen melonin, right? My name is Andrew, he goes on to say after he welcomes everybody. But he spends time in this video introing Sindarin, actually then talking through the fact that he had been pronouncing it in his own videos recently incorrectly. And he spends a minute and a half explaining that in the language they emphasize the first syllable if it's a 3-syllable word and this whole thing. But once he gets past emphasis, he goes on to then explaining the consonants. See if I got it on screen. So here he says C equals K. So that was actually one of those first lessons that I needed to go like, oh, here, this is not man senich, it's kennick, right? Like this is the C is going to be a hard K sound.
Yeah.
So, and down here, mankarnin, not sarnin or something like that. So that was a good lesson. That was relevant. And he also gets into the CH, right? Here he says it's not ch, it's like bach. So coming back, these were both relevant to my mankennick. It's not senich, it's kennick. That was, these things that I was able to learn right away in this one little video. He goes on further down here, away from his consonants to vowels eventually, and he ends with diphthongs. I'm not being weird. Diphthongs are a real thing, people, if you're not familiar. A diphthong is when 2 letters come together, and that's actually relevant for the second one, which is maikarnen. So this isn't just M-A-E, may, it's mai. You're going to get the pronunciation of the A and the E, maikarnen. So, this video, 6 minutes, was enough for me to try and get close to this. Close to this. Now, you'll notice this one doesn't have a sound file, which is a bummer. I didn't go watch the videos again, watch the movies again to get the sound, but this one does. And I'm willing to put myself on the spot here with a little bit of a sound test to see if I can pronounce this as well as as Aragorn did in the video. So
you have the sound. That's hilarious.
I'm a little scared.
Scared. Let's do this. Say your phrase one more time.
Maikarnen prego melonin.
Okay.
Here's Aragorn. We'll see if it plays the first time or not and if you can hear it, but you tell me.
Maikarnen prego melonin.
So I'll tell you the one thing that stood out as I listened to it and as I said it. I was saying Maikarnen, like trying to make the emphasis on the diphthong. Aragorn says it more like my. I'm saying like May. He's like Maikarnen. So I'll let you all be able to determine that later. But
yeah, that makes sense. So I want a couple thoughts from the learning side that's popping out to me right away. Okay, first of all, Will technically broke the rules. He went to an Elvish website. I'd like to
I wanted to find what I wanted to say.
I know, but I want to acknowledge that website, I think, helped you get to much closer what you wanted to say. I'm not necessarily saying, like, in real life that's a problem, right? But, like, here's the thing. Will had a very clear understanding of what he wanted to do. He got resources that told him generally what he was looking for, and then he found a YouTube video that helped bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Totally great. But there's a lot of learner intention and agency behind all of that, which is fine.
Right.
That's right. Most people who are going to learn stuff on the internet themselves.
Probably what you have to have for YouTube, try to do right?
That. Yes. For myself, I had less of an intention. I just knew I wanted to learn Elvish. And I didn't know what that meant. So I went to YouTube. I looked up learn Elvish. I will say, I do think I clicked on the video that you showed. But I think because he didn't get right into phrases teaching for me right away, or so something took me away from that video. I don't remember why.
But I ended up not going to that video. It teaches you pronunciation.
Yes. So I was looking specifically for video to teach me to say something. Now here's where that went off track, right? Is I found a handful of videos where they like kind of do that in the beginning, and then things maybe didn't go the way we wanted, right? So I didn't invest a lot of time into this, which is part of it. But here's some of my thoughts on the videos I was looking at, right? And I'll compare them to Will's, but I'm gonna go share my screen as well. And let's just share, because I don't really need the audio in mine, so I'm just gonna share window 2 here for a second. Okay, so this is YouTube. So I used 3 different videos here. I used this guy had 2 different videos. And then this was the one I originally got to. Right?
I love that he's got the swords. That's great.
Yes, he's the Lord of the Rings guy, as he calls himself. So this is one of the first ones I got to. And I think I got here because when I figured out Sindrin was a thing, I started looking up how to speak Sindrin. And so this got me here because it was there. And I was looking for a handful of things. I was looking for videos that had chapters for the most part.
Okay.
Because I do think when you're learning something on YouTube, having chapters is helpful. That's going to come out in this series. Yeah. The chapter feature YouTube added a while ago is a very helpful feature because it allows you to kind of, I think, quickly jump around. Like Will was even showing that when he was doing it. I did it a couple times. I don't know about you, Will, but like I jumped around in the video depending on what I was looking for and where I was looking at. Now, from the learning experience, here was the problem with my videos. One, they were all from different people, which means they weren't like one unified experience. And two, she started like immediately going into nouns, articles, and pronouns. And like, that's great, but I just wanted to learn how to say a phrase. Right. And I was like, I didn't have time to learn nouns, pronouns, and articles. So that like demotivated me pretty quickly, and I started skipping ahead to where she had examples from Lord of the Rings. And this makes so much sense where she is now. I thought she created this. She's on your Elvish website. I don't know if you know this, but like it's exactly the same as your Elvish website. I was like, where have I seen this before?
Yep.
So she was like walking us through stuff, and then was showing like she went to a phrase that is said at a different part in the series, but was kind of showing different phrases here. And if I had probably put more time in, I probably could have learned more if I had went through those examples with her. But I didn't have time, and I didn't feel like doing that. And so I ended up going to this other guy who said the phrase that I wanted to learn right at the beginning of his video. So I just played it over and over again until I learned that phrase.
Perfect.
But here's this one had chapters as well. Here's my issue, I think, in general with the YouTube experience. Am I saying you can't learn stuff off of YouTube? No. I'm not saying that. You can, obviously. Will learned 2 phrases. I'm not saying you can't learn stuff off of YouTube. There's a ton of stuff on YouTube. But I think you have to have a lot of learner motivation to make that happen. And I think you have to find somebody who's coherently thought through a series of videos that can help you learn what you're doing. If not, you're going to do a lot of work bouncing around to different videos. And honestly, all of these videos, it's because we're also trying to learn Elvish. It's not taught really by a teacher. The teacher in like learning design still matters. And I think this is what we're getting to in some of the series, at least from this point, like the language learning. I personally think Will probably did a little bit better because Will also teaches language. So like you can tell Will's already kind of breaking down the phrase to learn it. I don't. So I didn't even think about doing it that way. I was just like, I need a phrase that I can hear on a YouTube video somewhere that I can memorize. So like that I think helps. In these videos, they go into like root words, they go into the language, but there's no like thought to the learning experience as much because they're just trying to show something on YouTube. So like that creates kind of for me, I lost motivation pretty quickly because nobody was trying to teach me a phrase right away. And there's a reason in a lot of language trainings, they try to do that in the beginning before they get you to root words and things because it's a motivation thing. And a lot of us who know learning experience and design know you need to motivate them before you get into things like nouns, pronouns, all of that stuff because nobody's going to care unless they know how to say something.
Right. Right.
And so that's, I think, important. And that's what I think was missing from a lot of these videos. And then it went into a lot of, because it's Elvish, it went into a lot of like the history of Elvish at different points. So I just experienced kind of a disjointed video experience where like, it wasn't really like here's the phrase we're going to learn. Here's how we're going to break down that phrase.
Right.
And then here's how we're going to pronounce it. Right. Will did that himself by pulling in a resource and going to a YouTube video.
Right.
But he teaches language. I didn't do that. But like from a learning design standpoint, as I'm reflecting on this, that's how I would design a learning experience to learn phrases and languages. I would present the phrase, I would break it down, we'd rebuild the phrase back up, and then we'd practice sections of the phrases. There's none of that. There's also no feedback. Like Will's having to find an audio file somewhere to find out is he saying it the right way.
Well, like, that's the lucky thing, right? I had that because you're right. I went and got a different resource.
Yeah. But also, I will say, like, and it's hit or miss on who does what. One thing I really liked about your video, Will, they put the words up on the screen. This video kind of does that at different points, but Again, because the learning designer didn't make it. I don't think I'd pick light brown words for a brown background.
Right.
There's, and to this person's defense, they're just making a YouTube video to try. I'm not criticizing them. Like, it's not. They're just making a YouTube video to teach people how to do stuff. They're not. This isn't like a school of Tolkien. You know, like it's just somebody putting YouTube videos up. But that's the point, I think, right? And I will say, I think Will and I picked something that's harder to do, right? So I did this, just how to speak Spanish. Spanish, very common language to learn. If I do that, there are Spanish series for beginners. There's an entire series on how to learn it in 35 minutes from somebody who's very clearly presenting. And I haven't watched this video, but I guess that this video would probably be a little bit easier to follow because there's definitely chapters in here to look at. She's got a board at different places where she's like teaching things. But again, this person probably is designing from a, like, knows, I would guess this person probably teaches Spanish somewhere.
Right.
Like, this is designed for learning.
Right.
And I think that's the first thing that this first part of the series is highlighting for me. Is I'm not saying you can't learn stuff off of YouTube. And this series will prove that that's not the case. Because, like, we already know, like, Will and I learned how to make a pie. There's some caveats to that episode, but we learned how to make a pie, okay? You can learn stuff off of YouTube, but learning very complex ideas and learning them well, I'm skeptical. I still think intentional design behind the learning experience matters, and I think feedback matters, and I think experts matter. I think having a instructor, a mentor who can actually provide real feedback to you matters. And not having that in the YouTube video experience, sure, you can learn stuff, but I do think there's some limitations to it. I don't know. Will, what are your thoughts?
We're probably going to see big themes in each of these episodes, because you just listed the correct list of things that we want to have in learning. I think that's clear for me and for you, and the reasons I went around to get to what my solution were, because in this case the videos we found were not designed for learning. I think that's the big theme of the Elvish experience here. Like, I know from Pi, right? Feedback and expert tips and contextualization, those were things that we didn't have access to, right?
Yeah.
And so we're trying to use their list for all the things in our kitchen, and it didn't go great. But here for Elvish, this big theme that we lose is like, the content is there to be learned. There is no presentation of it for learning purposes. And even my guy, Andrew's video, right? He went over emphasis first because he wanted to correct himself from his previous video. It wasn't because, like, emphasis may be the best thing to start with. I don't know. But he's like, oh, I need to correct how I was saying Sindarin was incorrect. It's Sindarin. And I'm like, okay, good for you, dude. Like, that's teaching me something. But it wasn't, is that the most relevant thing? Like, none of my words, I'll check myself before I say this, none of my words are 3 syllables long. So the rule he gave me was about 3-syllable long words. Not helpful. Not a problem for what I was learning, right? But like, so the first 2 minutes of his video were irrelevant to what I wanted to learn. And then he gets into consonants, and then he gets into vowels, and that became more relevant, right? But if he was trying to teach me a phrase, he would probably wanted to start with the vowels and consonants over emphasis, just so I could know what the sounds are even in the words themselves. Yeah. And then once I know what the sounds are, emphasis is how you put those sounds together. But if you tell me emphasis first, I don't even know what the sounds are. How am I supposed to, it's like Sindarin is Sindarin. Is it Sindarin? Is it Sindarin? Is it Sindarin? Like, I don't know, but all is the S a Z, right? That's one thing that he does address in the video. Is it Sindarin or Zindarin? It's not Zin. There's no Z sound in that language. Okay, cool. I learned this stuff from him. And in 6 minutes, I did learn a lot of information. But like you're saying, I'm interpreting that because of my background. I'm able to use that information more effectively because I've taught English and I've learned other languages. that makes it all more valuable.
Yeah.
Because for that purpose. The video by itself, if I just gave it to Marissa or Sam, or like even yourself, you're wrestling with your videos, right? Because it's not necessarily getting you to something. Those pictures you put up there briefly of the Spanish video, like I remember my Spanish classes, first class, first day, all the teacher would tell us is like how to say what your name is, how to say how are you, how to ask what the weather is, because she wanted us to have these very simple phrases to be able to repeat over and over and over again and ask different people to hopefully get different answers. If I ask you what your name is, you're going to tell me your name. If I ask another person, they're going to tell me their name. So the phrase will always be the same, but I'll hear different names. Cool. And then if I ask you what the weather is, you're supposed to say it's raining. But if I ask you what the weather is, you're supposed to say it's sunny. So now we're all practicing different phrases. Cool. We're learning Spanish. We're getting something actionable. These videos, weren't bad, but they were not driving towards that instructional purpose. So
yeah, I think you're right. The big theme out of this is the intentional design behind learning does matter. And while there's content on YouTube itself is not designed solely to be a learning platform, and a lot of content on there is not designed with learning intention, with a goal and a way to get people across the gap to that goal. And I think that still matters. And I will see throughout the rest of the series some other elements I think matter. But I think this idea, which is really, Will, I think the comment that came out of that trip, which is like, we've democratized learning, so we don't need formal learning institutions anymore.
Yeah.
I question that entirely. And I think one of the reasons I do is because of this. Is like just having information online does not equate designed for learning.
Right.
And there is stuff designed for learning that's accessible, but it's not democratized. Most of it's behind paywalls. YouTube's the only thing that's really fully democratized to get access to. So I think that matters.
And here's the last little reinforcement to our point. Andrew's channel starts with his very first video is just a remix of a trailer. Then the next video is him hanging out with some friends in his dorm. He's kind of a vlogger and he's creating content, but then he has 3 videos about how to learn Elvish. Like he's actually not an Elvish teaching channel. It's not his purpose. It's not his point.
Yeah.
He just made a couple videos. Was it helpful to me? Yes. Did it get to the point that it's going to make a learning experience? No. So,
yeah,
folks,
that makes sense.
I guess the warning is, check it out, take your time, make sure you find stuff that works for what your purpose is, but also don't get discouraged if you are trying to learn Elvish, right? Like you're gonna need a ton of videos, you're gonna need a ton of resources. It's not just a one size fits all, and that I think shows the value of a higher education course. A faculty member with experience or research or previous education has all of the information or a significant amount of the information ahead of time that they organize a learning process for you. They bring textbooks, they bring videos, they bring audio, they bring their own experiences, they bring guests. That's the value they're bringing to a higher education course. That's why you should pay for that work. Somebody on YouTube is just having a good time, hanging out. Some people, some of them are making learning experiences, but Andrew, this guy, he's just hanging out, trying to make a cool point.
For sure. Well, I think that's our first take in the learning series. I'm gonna lead into the kind of just
learning
the thing.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna lean into it. Next week on the High Tech Podcast, we're going to continue the series, but Will and I are going to install a bidet. That is correct. We are installing a bidet in my bathroom because my wife wanted one forever ago. We got one for Christmas, and I still have yet to install it. So we're going to use the podcast to solve that problem. So that is next week. Make sure you check that out. Don't worry, nobody will be using it in the
I was
video.
thinking the same
thing.
thing.
I'm just clarifying.
Installation only.
Installation only. Okay, so it is a perfectly safe video to watch next week on episode 186 of the podcast. Just a reminder, you can find us everywhere on socials: X, YouTube, Threads, TikTok, if it still exists, whatever you'd like to find. You can find us at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod. And you can also email us, inbox@hightechpod.us, as well as if you'd like to get in touch with us, you want to be on the podcast, you have thoughts about learning Elvish. You're like, guys, you missed this key video on YouTube.
We'll talk
Let
to
us
you.
know. We'll talk to you. Hit us up at inbox@hightechpod.us. And also a reminder, every episode has a website. Or episode page. Every episode has a website.
On our website.
Yes. No, every episode has a page on our website at hightechpod.us. Make sure you check it out. We'll link to the videos we used. We will link to the resources we've used, all of that stuff during this series. So you want to check that out. All right, folks, this is a wrap on another week empowering minds.
Embracing tech.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Buckle up.